welcome to a fabulous video on federalism. What? And the Missouri Constitution. I hope you are excited to learn about this system of government and how it impacts Missouri. So our first learning target, we're going to be looking at the changing relationships between the state and the federal government. That relationship, of course, that is made possible by federalism. So before we define or describe that relationship, we need to understand what federalism is. Federalism, what? Federalism, what? A division of what? Of power between the states and the federal government. Mic drop. Yes, so this is a system of government in which power is divided or shared between the states or the regional governments and the central government. This was a unique system that our founders came up with when they gave us the Constitution, because typically, at this point in time especially, most governments were run as a unitary system with one entity being responsible for everybody. All right, so federalism and the Constitution. So if we're looking in the Constitution for specifically things that can be done by the central government and things that are left to the states, we're probably going to be looking in Article 1 of the Constitution or Article 4. Can you please be quiet with your peppers? Thank you. Thank you. So in Article 1 of the Constitution, we're going to be looking at things that are specifically granted to the federal government. So things like the ability to coin money or declare war. In Article 4, but then also the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, we're looking for specific things that the states can do. So within their boundaries, the states have the responsibility for making laws for citizens of their state. We also have powers that are prohibited by to the federal government and the states. So for example, Congress can't make a law establishing titles of nobility. So I cannot be Princess Petty of coffee, no matter how awesome that sounds. And we also have powers that are shared. So these shared powers we call concurrent powers. So if you were to think of powers of the federal government and powers of the state government as like a Venn diagram, in the middle part would be those concurrent powers. So where do we look in the Constitution to figure out what Congress can do and what they can't do? We've talked before about the elastic clause of the Constitution, which gives Congress the power to make all laws that are necessary and proper. We call that elastic because it stretches the power of Congress, giving them probably a little bit more than what the founders intended. So Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution is where we find the enumerated or express powers of Congress, and they are listed there in clauses 1 through 18. Clause 18 being the elastic clause. We also have some inherent powers. So just because a government is a government, there are certain things that they have to do, okay? Like the government, in order to, for example, in order to raise an army and a navy, which is something that Article 1 tells the central government they can do, you have to have people, you have to have money, you have to have equipment. All of those things are inherent in order to make that express power happen. Last but not least, on this slide, we have the supremacy clause. So if we were to look in Article 6 of the Constitution, we've talked about this before, Article 6 tells us that if there's ever a question between state law and federal law will always supersede or will always be more powerful, okay? And a prime example of that is in McCulloch versus Maryland. And you guys are working on or have worked on that landmark case. So in McCulloch in Maryland, the state of Maryland attempted to tax a federal institution. That federal institution was the second bank of the United States. And the Supreme Court had to figure out if a state has the authority to impede, in this situation, tax a federal institution. And spoiler alert, they do not have that power. All right, so with that, I will stop on this video. If you guys have any questions, let me know.